In the first video on this topic of seeing what is, I noted that in John chapter 1, Philip says to his friend Nathanael, "We have found the one who will bring truth and hope to the people of Israel, Jesus, son of Joseph, Jesus of Nazareth." And Nathanael says, "Well, how can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Nathanael bought into the lie that was widely circulated in his own town, that the people of Nazareth could not be trusted, that they were of no value, they were of no count, they were no good. Nathanael could not imagine, because of the ways in which he was enculturated in his particular context in Cana, how anything good could possibly come out of Nazareth. But we can't write Nathanael off. When Philip says, "Come and see," Nathanael was willing to come and see. And that is the only way any of us will break free from our blindness and begin to see what is. We must be open to see what is. We must entertain the notion that we do not currently see all there is to see, which requires some honesty and some humility. Now, the interchange that follows between Jesus and Nathanael is difficult to follow or understand. Jesus commends Nathanael. "Behold an Israelite in whom there is no deceit," which was not totally true. And then Nathanael responds, "Well, how do you know me?" And Jesus says, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." And then suddenly, Nathanael has this aha moment, and the light comes on. And we wonder, well, what was it that Jesus said to flip the switch? Commentators are not hesitant to offer their explanations, which is what commentators do. But as scholar R.E. Brown says, all the explanations are sheer speculations. Who knows what it was that brought Nathanael to a moment of awakening and enlightenment. And my sense of it is that the author intended this to be ambiguous, because there is always something mysterious about what actually goes on to trigger enlightenment, so that we begin to see what is at any particular moment in time. But one thing is clear. Philip didn't force Nathanael to come, and if he did, it wouldn't have done any good, because in order to see, we have to be open to see. 60+% of the people in Trump's party cannot see how this president was directly responsible for inciting violence at the Capitol, because they are not open to see. And I understand that. I understand that because I have lived that. Many years ago, I was just as blind when it came to my religious beliefs. I believed in biblical inerrancy. And I believed in biblical inerrancy because that's what I was taught. And that is what I was heard. That's what I heard. And that is what I was told over and over and over again. And I was told that it was worth fighting for. In my final year of my Master of Divinity Studies at a seminary that taught biblical inerrancy, I gave some consideration to pursuing a PhD degree in Christian studies. And of course, I wanted to attend a seminary that believed in biblical inerrancy. So I had an interview at another school. And when I was asked why I wanted to pursue a PhD degree, or why I was considering it, I told them, and this is, and I know anyone who knows me now would find this really difficult to believe, but that's where I was. I told them that I wanted to be equipped to defend biblical inerrancy and to take on the liberals. and that sounds crazy now, I know, but that's where I was. And let me tell you, in those days, no argument, no evidence, no logic or reason or common sense could have convinced me otherwise. I was simply not open to see what is. And so I understand how it is that 60+% of the president's party cannot see how narcissistic and self-advancing and evil this president is, who, thank God, will be an ex-president in a few days. They listen to one kind of news, which is not really news at all, and they hear the lies over and over and over again, just the way I did about biblical inerrancy. I was told that over and over and over again. And so I was not open to see. When as a freshman, I walked into Dr. Coker's New Testament introduction class with my New Schofield Reference Bible and my copy of The Late Great Planet Earth, Dr. Coker was not going to teach me anything. And he didn't. Because I was in no place to learn. I was not open to see. Now, what is it that makes us open to see? Well, I don't have clear answers, but I do think that part of it is that one has to be in a place where one's ego has less control and hold and power over the person. And in my own life, I had to go through some difficult circumstances and experiences that produced a great deal of anxiety in my life. And over the course of a decade, those experiences, bit by bit, delivered some real blows to my ego. A person who is open to seeing what is real and true is a person who has come to a more humble place, a more honest place, a less assuming place, and a more compassionate place. A person who is open to see what is must at least entertain the notion that what one thinks he or she sees may not really be what is true. And that's a more humble place. That's a more honest place to be than if a person is absolutely certain of his views or beliefs. I was certain of my view of biblical inerrancy at that time in my life. I didn't look at all the evidence or do an extensive study and come to that conclusion. I was programmed to believe it and to defend it. And it's the same thing with all these folks who believe, against all the evidence to the contrary, that this president actually won the election and the election was somehow stolen. And to defend that belief, many of these folks have come up with outlandish conspiracy theories that are sheer fantasy and that serve to erode belief in our democracy. There was a rabbi who lived in a village on the steppes of Russia. And every morning for 20 years, he crossed the village square to pray in the synagogue. And every morning he was closely watched by a policeman who hated Jews. And so finally, one morning, the policeman walked up to the rabbi and demanded to know where he was going. "I don't know," said the rabbi. "Well, what do you mean you don't know? For the past 20 years, I've seen you go to the synagogue across the square. And now you tell me you don't know? I'll teach you a lesson." And so with that, he grabbed the old man and dragged him off to jail. And as the policeman was turning the key on the prison cell, the rabbi looked at him with a sort of twinkle in his eye, and he said, "Do you see what I mean when I said that I did not know where I was going?" The one who is most open to know is the one who knows that she does not know. The one who thinks he knows is the one who is least likely to actually know. Because wisdom comes to the humble, and the proud go away empty. Do we know that we do not know? Can we see how little we actually see? In writing to the Corinthians, Paul says, he says, "For now we see in a mirror dimly." He says, "For now we know only in part." We see dimly. We know only in part. And yet Paul is able to see enough, and he is able to know enough to be able to say quite confidently, "Now abide these three, faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love." Well, how did he know that? How did he see that? How did he come to that awareness? He knew because in his humility and in his weakness and in his openness, that is what he experienced. He had come to know what the Apostle John had come to know when he says, "God is love, and whoever loves knows God and is born anew every day by God." Those who see what is know that God is love. And they are the most compassionate persons, generous persons, loving persons you will ever meet. They know God as welcoming. They know God as forgiving. They know God as long-suffering. And they know God cares about all people and suffers with those who suffer. And this is the God I am coming to know. Now, I say coming to know because there are days I live more out of my little self, my false self, my ego, than I do my true self, my larger self, my Christ self. There are days I regress, and those are the days I am a bit cynical. We can never see all there is to see or know there is to know. And that is especially true when it comes to God. God is an inexhaustible wellspring of grace and love that never runs dry. Once Nathanael comes to a place of enlightenment, a place of seeing and knowing, Jesus says to him, "You will see greater things than these." The infinite wealth of the wisdom of God and the love of God and the grace of God is open to any who are open to see. Open to all of us. We just have to see what is.